speaking, if you have comments, if you have questions. As I ask questions, please engage in the discussion, and we'll go from there, okay? So what we're gonna talk about today, when Mega told me the topic is women in the Bible, there's so much to say in general about women in the Bible. And the Bible has so many examples of women whom we learned from, whether it be through the example that they led from a virtuous life, or the example that they led from a sinful life. And the Bible teaches us lessons from each of these women. So how I'm gonna approach this topic with you guys is by focusing in on a specific virtue and showing how different women in the Bible demonstrated the virtue in different ways. So we'll talk about the virtue of perseverance and women in the Bible. So can someone pitch in and tell me what perseverance means? Like when we think of the word perseverance, what are we really talking about? Guys, what's perseverance to you? When you hear the word perseverance, what do you hear? Like, what does that mean to you?
Like resilience, not giving up easily.
That's very good. So not giving up. Good, Maria. Thanks. Anyone else? What does perseverance mean? So I agree with Maria. The idea is that there's perseverance often in our mind is associated with the sense of either trouble or hardship, and someone who's struggling through it and sort of sticking through the struggle to the very end and not giving up. And I think when we talk about perseverance, especially during the times that we live in, and I talk about the times that we live in the sense of, the time where there's a pandemic, where there's a lot of worry going around. I talk about the time where, we're at a very pivotal stage in our life, being in university. I talk about these times where there's a lot of distractions and we have, goals, whether it be on a personal level or on a professional level, and of course at the spiritual level. And we see perseverance as a very important virtue or tool for all of this to sort of have a godly and Christian outcome. But how do I show perseverance in my life? So let's go to women in the Bible and let's see how they showed us perseverance. So first, we'll talk about perseverance and love. And how we'll learn about this is we'll go to Ruth chapter 4, verse 16 and 17. And if someone can please read for me Ruth 4, verse 16 and 17. Oh, sorry, and not for Ruth 1, Ruth chapter 1, verse 16 and 17. Oh, I see your message, Natalie. All right. Natalie, do you mind reading Ruth chapter 1, verse 16 and 17?
Yeah, sure. Let me just open it up.
Sure, take your time.
Okay, so Ruth chapter
1,
okay.
verses 16 and 17, please.
Okay. All right. But Ruth said, "Entreat me not to leave you or to turn back from following after you. For wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts you and me."
Thanks so much, Natalie. So you guys know the story of Ruth. So Ruth married into the family of Naomi and Elimelech, and this family had two sons. Ruth and her sister-in-law married into the family, and unfortunately, tragedy hit the family, and the dad and the two husbands died. And so Naomi looked at her two daughters-in-law and said to them, well, you ladies are both young. Please go back to your families and sort of start your life anew. But Ruth did not find it in her heart to leave her mother-in-law alone in the world, because Naomi would have been like completely alone in the world. And for whatever reason, this woman who was not even from Naomi's land, but rather from Moab, from the land of Moab, turns to Naomi and says to her, hey, you know what? I'm not leaving your side, and your people are going to be my people, your God's going to be my God, and whatever happens, we're going to go through it together. An easier option for Ruth perhaps would have been for her to go back to her parents or to her family and sort of start her life anew, but she chose to stick by her mother-in-law's side and try to build this new life with her. Now, Ruth was never portrayed to us as a naive or silly woman. In fact, she turned out, she and Naomi, to be quite resourceful, and she turned out to be this quite strong woman who was, willing to take chances and willing to take opportunities to better both her life and the life of Naomi. But she showed us this sense of perseverance that stems out of love. That for us to persevere in something, we have to have the sense of love or the sense of duty. So when we think of examples of things that we need to persevere in, things, for example, like our family life or our studies, or our spiritual struggles, the perseverance in these things is not possible without making sure that we love whatever it is, that our goal is. So if our goal is to improve our family relations, this has to stem from a love towards our family. If our goal is to improve our studies, this has to stem from a love, whether it be towards the subject that we're studying or towards the goal that we're working towards. Um, if it's a struggle in spiritual matters, it has to stem from love, because perseverance is going to meet so many struggles along the way, and it's only through focusing on the original root of why we started the struggle that we're able then to persevere and to continue to struggle through it even when things get tough. Okay, so that's the first lesson we learn from Ruth. So we learned from Ruth that perseverance has to stem from love. Our next lesson is going to be from Esther. So we're going to read Esther chapter 4, verse 16. And perhaps I'll ask Verena to read for us. Esther chapter 4, verse 16. Brina. All right. Maybe Maria, can you read for us Esther chapter 4, verse 16?
Sure. Go gather all the Jews who are present in Shushan and fast for me, neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will fast likewise. And so I will go to the king, which is against the law, and if I perish, I perish.
All right. Esther. So Esther teaches us a bit about perseverance and leadership. So when we
Marianne, your mic is muted. Could you please unmute yourself?
Oh, there we are. Do you guys hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, sorry about that. So I was saying Esther teaches us about the importance of leadership. So when we persevere, sometimes we have to take chances and take risks. And whether that be in learning something new, whether it be in sticking with something that we're doing, whether it be getting at our goal in a different manner if the way that we're going at achieving our goal is not working. For us to be perseverant, we have to develop qualities that leaders need in order to lead people. So when we think of good leaders, we think of people who are mindful of the strengths and weaknesses of others, We think of people who have a good sense of their own strengths and weaknesses, who have a lot of insight into who they are. We think of people who are willing to, you know, put more than what is just required, like who are willing to go the extra mile. So here's Esther, a queen of her people, where no one knows she's a Jew except her older cousin Mordecai, who raised her up. And she's presented with this problem. Well, hey, you know what, Esther? All your people are gonna get killed because of Haman and his messed up approach to politics. She could have simply said, hey, well, tough luck for everyone. I'm sort of living my life here. But no, Esther takes a different approach. Esther realizes that she's a leader of her people, and that for them to achieve peace and for them to reach a resolution of this conflict that has arose, she has to step up, so to say, and to lead her people in this struggle. Now, she doesn't take it lightly. She does not take this position lightly. In fact, she tells Mordecai to gather all the Jews and to ask everyone to fast and pray for 3 days. And she also decides that she will fast and pray. And she joins in unity with her entire community, giving them this sense of purpose and the way that they can contribute to its solution. So they all face this one problem, and she gives them all this sense of purpose by saying, you also have a job to do. You have given me this responsibility, but each of us has a job to do. We each have to fast and pray such that this problem will pass, such that we can all get through this struggle together. And she says, and as a person who's in a leadership position, I'm also going to step up. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to take a chance, and I'm going to go to the king. And if I perish, then I perish. Now, does she take it lightly? No, she does not. In fact, she takes the whole thing so seriously that she depends on the support of her entire community in order to get through this problem. So Esther teaches us that for perseverance to be successful, it has to sometimes ask for help. It has to be willing to ask for help and be willing to realize limitations on oneself and be willing to take risks. So that's what Esther teaches us about the virtue of perseverance. So now we're going to go and move to the next woman in the Bible. And we're going to talk about a very interesting aspect, I think, of perseverance. And of course, a woman that all of us know and would be remiss not to mention in this talk. We'll go to Luke chapter 2, verse 19. And if it's okay, I'm going to ask Sarah to read for us Luke chapter 2, verse 19.
Okay, one second.
Take your time.
Luke 2, verse?
Yeah,
Which
19.
verse? 19, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So Saint Mary is one of these people who, if we read her story separately from who she is to us as a person and as a saint and as a mother for all of us, we are perhaps overwhelmed by how much this young woman has had to struggle throughout her whole life. So we have a young girl given to the temple by her parents. We have a young girl whose parents die when she's quite young, a girl who's betrothed to a man much older than her, um, a girl who's told that she is going to be this pivotal figure to her entire nation, to the entire world, that she will be the mother to the savior of all people. Um, she had to struggle with the spiritual weight of that responsibility, and she also had to struggle with the societal, you know, barriers and complications of such responsibility. And then she gives birth to a son who, becomes her entire life. And she knows from the moment of birth that this son then has to die for the sake of everyone, including those who have rejected him. This young lady is asked to travel with her infant boy to a foreign country. She has to see him throughout his whole life, perhaps being rejected by the people he's come for, then die. Then she has to deal with the early church and all the struggle of that. It's an immense amount of struggle throughout this woman's life. And yet, we never hear of a point where Saint Mary, complains. The Bible actually records very few words of Saint Mary's. The Bible mentions, and the Bible mentions this, after the time that Jesus was 12 years old. It mentions a story of a mother who's asking her child, why would you put me and your father through all of this? That's the one time asking God, why would you do this? But in all her life, Saint Mary, we just see a woman who reflects quite a lot on what's happening. And in fact, the Bible says that she treasures all these things that happen and keeps them in her heart where she reflects on them. Saint Mary, why are you treasuring these moments? Why are you treasuring these memories? Like, aren't they like painful memories? Like, isn't it hurtful to have to deal with all of these things? Isn't it so hard to have to deal with all of these things? Would you rather not have had an easier, simpler life where you didn't have to deal with all of these problems, where you didn't have to deal with your, child having to escape murder at an age up under 2? Wouldn't it have been much easier not to deal with all these things? What are you really treasuring? What's the treasure here? And if Saint Mary were to speak to us, perhaps she would say, you know what, I really treasure how God was with me throughout each of these steps. They were hard. Life wasn't easy. In fact, life was quite difficult. But it was more about treasuring the fact that she saw God in every step. And she saw herself as an instrument that God can use for the glory of his name. So Saint Mary, among the many, many, many things she can teaches us that perseverance is not doable without reflection and insight. It is so hard to go through a difficult situation if one does not have the capacity to reflect on how God has helped her or him before. It is so hard. It is almost undoable to go through a difficult situation if one does not remember how things in the past have, shown how much God cares about us, how much God cares about me, how much God has given me. Even in the toughest of times, even when we look back at those hard situations that seem unsolvable, unsurmountable, God comes at just the right moment and turns, whatever hard thing it might be, into something that I've learned from, into something that is good, into something that is beautiful. Sometimes it's the tough situations that we remember the most, and not necessarily the happy ones. It's those tough things that we had figured are unsolvable. Well, there's no solution out of this, right? And then, you know, there's this one day, this one moment, this one solution that you think to yourself, oh my goodness, I would not have thought that this was possible. And it stays, as a memory that we, like Saint Mary, can treasure in our heart so that we can reflect on as well. So Saint Mary teaches us that perseverance is not doable without insight. The next person that we're gonna learn about, or that we're gonna learn from, is someone that we're gonna perhaps focus on a little bit more. And it's the Shunammite woman in 2 Kings. So we're gonna go back. Okay, perhaps we're gonna ask, Verena, are you able to read for us? Okay. Verena, if you're able to, just cut in at any time. Gina, can you read for us?
Yes, sure.
Excellent.
What would you like me to read?
So it's 2 Kings, chapter 4. And Gina, I'm going to ask you to read from verse 17 to verse 22, and then we're going to ask someone else to read, okay?
Okay. So
So,
King,
2 Kings, chapter 4,
chapter
starting
4,
at verse 17.
17. Okay, just 1 second.
Take your time.
Here. 17. But the woman became pregnant, and the next year, about the same time, she gave birth to a son, just as Elijah had told her. The child grew, and one day he went out to his father, who was with the reapers. He said to his father, "My head, my head." His father told the servant, "Carry him to his mother." After the servant had lifted him up and carried him to his mother, the boy sat on her lap until noon, and then he died. She went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, then shut the door and went out. She called her husband and said, "Please send me one of the servants and a donkey so I can go to the man of God quickly and return." "Why go to him today?" he asked. "It is not the new moon or the Sabbath." "That's all right," she said. She sat in the donkey and said to her servant, "Lead on. Don't slow down for me unless I tell you." So she set out and came to the man of God at the Mount Carmel. When he saw her in the distance, the man of God said to his servants, "Gehazi, look, there's the Shunammite. Run to meet her and ask her, 'Are you all right? Is your husband all right? Is your child all right?'" "Everything is all right," she said. When she reached the man of God at the mountain, she took hold of his feet. Gehazi came over to push her away. But the man of God said, "Leave her alone. She is in bitter distress. But the Lord has hidden it from me and has not told me why." "Did I ask you for a son, my lord?" she said. "Didn't I tell you, don't raise my hopes?" Elijah said to Gehazi, "Tuck your cloth into your belt, take my staff in your hand and run. Don't greet anyone you meet. If anyone greets you, do not answer. Lay my staff on the boy's face." But the child's mother said, "As surely as the Lord lives and you live, I will not leave you." So he got up and followed her.
Thanks,
Gehazi,
Gina.
you're
That's
welcome.
good. Thank you so much. So the Shunammite woman is this interesting woman to whom or for whom Elisha had prayed, and God gave her a son. And then the son grows up. He's out in the field working with his old father, and he seems to get like some sort of, really bad headache and falls ill and then dies. And his mother simply lays him on the bed and then goes out to her husband and she's like, hey, you know what? Can you prepare like a cart for me with a donkey and things? I need to go and see Elisha. He's like, why? He's like, you know what? It's all right. In different translations, it translates into it's all right, it is all well, or it is peace. And then this woman sort of goes to Elisha, and Elisha sends Gehazi, his servant, who asks her, "Is everyone okay? Are you okay?" And she says, "It's all okay." And then she comes to Elisha, and Elisha, the great prophet, the disciple of Elijah, has no idea why she's there. God has hidden it from him until the woman asks him, did I not tell you not to deceive me and not to raise my hopes up for in vain? And so Elisha recognizes the woman's son is in trouble. And so he tells Gehazi, well, go and put my staff on the son. And she holds on to his feet and she's like, well, I'm not letting go until you come with me. And so he gets up and goes with her. The Shunammite woman teaches us about internal peace and faith while persevering. When we persevere in an issue, or when we are struggling to achieve a goal, we meet so many hardships along the way. And in order to be able to continue to struggle, it is very important for us to realize and to have faith that all is well, or that there will be peace. Why is this faith important? Because otherwise we are programmed as human beings to despair at meaningless or hopeless struggles. We are not designed to go after non-achievable goals. That's not our design per se. Our design is that if we have faith in something or believe that something can be done, then we struggle after it, no matter how hard it might be. There might be like a 0.1% chance that it will happen, a 0.01% chance that it will happen. But if we have hope, if we have faith that it will happen, then we struggle to achieve it. There's something very interesting about the Shunammite woman having her only son die and she leaving him in the house to go and see Elisha. Shunammite woman, who told you that Elisha will do anything at all? How do you know that all is well, that there is peace, that it's okay, everyone is all right? Why do you have so much faith? She says, well, because Elisha is a man of God, and I will not leave him until he comes with me. Like, I will struggle, I will continue to do this because I have faith that he can solve the problem. So just like he gave me a son through his prayers, he can solve this problem. I don't know how. She doesn't tell him how. She just says, hey, you know what? I will not leave until you come with me. And there's something about her telling Elisha the problem that God wanted to happen. Because God could have told Elisha what the problem was, but God actually hid it from Elisha, and the Bible makes a point of telling us that God hid it from Elisha because because God wanted us to learn from the Shunammite woman the importance of laying out our troubles or struggles in prayer, of putting it out there. We know that God knows everything, but it is important, and it is an important part of our struggle to say, God, I need help with this. God, I cannot do this alone. God, here is my problem. I will not leave until you fix it. That's what the Shunammite woman teaches us. So we look at these 4 women in the Bible, and so many more, right? So many more have taught us about perseverance. We look at the Samaritan woman and her perseverance in evangelism. We look at Mary Magdalene and her perseverance and courage in that even as the disciples left the side of Jesus when he was going to get crucified, she stood by him till the end. God recognizes and appreciates the virtue of perseverance. In fact, there's so much appreciation for this virtue that we see it come up so many times in the Bible. We see, this focus on being faithful and being perseverant till the very end. Perhaps, the last verse that we're gonna read is the verse that I think all these women from the Bible teach us. So I'm gonna read this verse. So it's Luke 16, verse 10. Sorry, I apologize. Let me just open up here. All right, so it's actually, I apologize, it's Revelation chapter 2, verse 10. So we read at the end of this verse what I think all these women are teaching us about perseverance, the lesson to all of us. So we read, "Be faithful until death, and I will give you the crown of life." And from these women, we learn that this is not doable without love being the root, faith being, the steadfast help throughout the struggle, qualities of leadership and stepping up being necessary, and qualities like reflection and insight on how much God has stood with us at every step is essential for us to continue to persevere. So that's our talk about women in the Bible and perseverance. Thanks. Happy to have any comments, questions, of course.
Thank you so much, Marianne. That was amazing. as usual. I have good news for everyone. Starting next week, we'll be back to the church for Vespers, a small talk, and Tasbiha after that. So we've been long waiting for the day we come back to church again. So starting next week, there is no Google Meet. We will meet all together in the church, God willing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So hope to see you there, Marian.
God willing, God willing. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
guys.
Thank you,
Take
Habib.
care.
Thanks.
Okay. So Heba, do you wanna pray for us, please?
Sure. الآب والابن والروح القدس الواحد آمين. اللهم يا رب اجعلنا مستحقين نقول بشكر يا أبانا الذي في السماوات تقدس اسمك تكن مشيئتك كما في السماء كذلك لنا كفنا اليوم واغفر لنا ذنوبنا كما نغفر نحن أيضا للمذنبين ولا تدخلنا في تجربة لكن نجينا من الشر ولك الملك والمجد إلى الأبد